Nothing? Okay. And then change for the actual meeting source.
No, I just
paid like $20.
this year, because you don't, you pay $2 and then like it's company, either you go pay the shit.
I don't know.
What it's called. I don't know what it's called. It was a few years ago. Yelling at me. Yeah, it's a COVID closed it, which was very upsetting. Because I want to finish.
Hopefully it works now.
Alright, cool.
I bought it. Actually, no, that was gonna say.
No, close to Teams.
The thing is,
Okay.
on green.
Looks weird. It does look weird.
Is it just in dark mode?
It's, yeah, it's dark mode. I'm not checking it out. It doesn't know how to. The stream is like.
They live?
We're live. Do you want me to cut the camera?
I like how you showed the technical difficulties.
Good.
Yeah, just change, make sure it's not source. Change. Still working, Max? All right, apologies for delay. Technical difficulties, so only 25 minutes. I'm gonna open the meeting at 5:55 PM. I'll start off with the acknowledgement of the traditional owners. The Curtin Student Guild pays our respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander members of the community by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land of which the Bentley campus is located, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and on our Kalgoorlie campus, the Wongatha people of the Northeastern Goldfields. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contributions they make to the life of this university, city, and this region. I'll move to attendance. Present, we have Dylan Storer, myself, Ben, we have Razan, we have Nicole online, we have Cooper, we have Tom, we have Hazaifa, we have Mitch, we have Morgan, Bridget, and Lorian. Visitors, we have Max Zhang, Hamida, Ebony, Rob, and Ella. Absent, we have Rabab and apologies from Nor, I believe. All right. I'll now move to, is there any disclosure of any personal or perceived conflicts of interest? Okay. Move to item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. The motion reads that the representation board approves the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 13th of the 3rd, 2025 as a true and accurate recording of the proceedings. Can I have someone to move this? Can I have someone to second? All those in favour?
Can we discuss?
Can we, is there any, sorry, any,
Yeah, so in others present, it has Mitch Craig instead of being a member present. It also has just conflict noted with item 9.2, which I'm not sure what that actually means.
Yes.
Whose conflict that is.
so I'll look back to you, have the,
That's your conflict with it being an NUS campaign and state branch.
Possibly, but still not
accurate.
outlined. Yeah.
Look to have that fixed and come through the next meeting.
We just fix it.
Fix it, pending, and then go for the approval now?
Yep.
Yeah. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Move to item 5, which is matters arising from the minutes. There are none. And now item 6, items for discussion. There is nothing for discussion. I'll move to item 7, which is public question time. I ask that you ask all of your questions now. I will not be allowing any questions during any report. Yeah. Yeah. I'll start off with Ella.
Oh, I guess I just want to find out ways that how the guild can more practically, I guess, push back against the types of free speech we're saying, and support initiatives to do that. Because even at Curtin, there's been some just slightly small disturbing instances we've kind of faced of people, who have tried to, promote with students of Palestine process up, it's what the other processes are up, be kind of talked to by certain members of the university, and just reports of like security kind of particularly targeting students who have like worn keffiyehs and stuff on campus. And so that's just small stuff at Curtin, but you know, at UWA, obviously, attacks and free speech is still going ahead as well. And you know, like across the country, continuing, you know, to see universities promote policies that restrict students' free speech and ability to like, you know, talk about things like Palestine, but not just Palestine, but to talk about, you know, things like, you know, even trans rights. Like at UWA, the university like didn't allow an event management plan to go through that. It was like students trying to petition for trans rights in front of the Green Library, for example. And at Swinburne University, the security told students to they didn't allow them to have a poll on their stall that was asking people if they hated, like why they hated Donald Trump, or like if they hated Donald Trump, which, you know, that's also an attack on free speech. Of, you know, students should be allowed to criticize the most powerful man in the world right now, who is attacking migrants, attacking, you know, all sorts of oppressed groups. So I think there's like this, it's not just like the question of Palestine, but it's broader questions of progressive issues under attack. And like Trump obviously also infiltrating Australian universities by like giving you know, researchers questionnaires and stuff, just like asking them if their research projects basically talk about like progressive issues, and then cutting funding to some research projects, including ones at UWA that do talk about like climate change or talk about gender ideology or whatever. So yeah, I guess I'm just like wondering more practically like what initiatives the Guild feels like they could take to support students who feel like maybe they're not able to feel confident to express their views, and also like how, you know, how the Guild can practice to support initiatives across the country that are trying to politically push back against this onslaught. Like there is the People's Inquiry into free speech in Palestine that's supported by APAN, Jewish Council of Australia, and the Greens, and so on, Students for Palestine, which I think is an important initiative to try to build a counter narrative in the media and in politics that says that, you know, it's negative that people who have been fighting against atrocities they're seeing go on, like, have been punished. You know, speaking up against human rights abuses, etc., are being punished. And yeah, I just want more detail on like what the Guild's actually going to do, because I know the Guild's met with like the Vice Chancellor and everything, but like, for example, I think there's been reports about some universities saying they're not going to adopt the new definition, but they're still using it against students even if they're not adopting it. But not just that definition. I think there's broader things that go beyond the scope of just concern about the definition, the new definition of anti-Semitism that does attack free speech. And yeah, I just want to know more details what the Guild thinks that they can practically do. I know this Guild is one of the most pro-Palestine guilds, but also one of the guilds that has taken the most strongest positions on attacks on free speach. So like, I think it'd be good for the Guild to try to organise some more initiatives to actually like take a bit more of a public stance like around these questions.
Would someone like to speak on this question asked?
I'm happy to. I mean, it was a long question that covered a lot of ground. We're the Curtin Student Guild, so I'm not going to talk about Swinburne or UWA other than to say we passed a motion in support of UWA. I wrote to the UWA Guild President offering support and offering for them to come to us and for us to help out, and I haven't heard back from Nikki. That's a choice for them to make, and I know that you can talk to your friends on their Guild Council, because we do stand ready to support and fight back at UWA. We've attended meetings at UWA, I know Razan and Tom have as well. But if they want to put petty stew poll politics ahead of actually having a broader WA pushback, we can do that. They seem more interested in wanting to court up to unity and labour right over there on their council than to actually try and build a movement back. So I think they're going to shoot themselves in the foot, unfortunately. But we're ready to help. I sent that letter to her. I haven't heard back. So that's up to her to choose what she wants to do and what the UWA Student Guild thinks is appropriate. I don't think that the way they're going is actually going to build that fight back at the moment, but that's up to them. In terms of the broader push, I certainly hear you and agree. I mean, there's too many points there. I'll just sort of go to all of them, but we're certainly ears and we're certainly ready to push back and fight. But I do want to make sure that we do it in the context of the other Curtin Student Guild. We want to make sure that we've got all of our sort of bases covered here at Curtin. would urge students if they have concerns about instances such as security or instances here at Curtin to come to us and speak to us about it, because we can't go forward and build a case to fight back against what we're seeing if it's hearsay and whispers. We've got the student assist team. They can come in, it can be confidential, no name needs to go on it, but that information can be filtered back through to us, and we can really start to push back. But yeah, I mean, in the case of just throwing sort of mud at a wall, I don't think it's going to work. We need to have a nice, consistent pushback, but we also need to, as a broader student union movement, the Guild here at Curtin stands ready to work with other student unions. But if other student unions aren't going to do it and put in the effort, like if every student union's done what Curtin's done, we'd be in a very different position. So we need to also take that into consideration. So there's a lot of moving plates at any given time. I think a really good example of something that we've managed to get at the Guild, and will be coming to the next representation board and next month's Guild Council meeting, is endorsement of a new student charter. So we've been able to push through, and we're very close to securing student charter breaches no longer being something that will be at Curtin University, which I think will be welcome. And which also gives people more right to appeal if they are uncomfortable, because it'll be pointing to a specific area that you can actually appeal to if they decide to go down a discipline panel. So I think that's something that we haven't yet spoken about in terms of that will come to next Reps Board and Guild Council next month for endorsement of that. But I'm quite confident and I'm happy to speak to that in my sort of report as well, what's included in that. But I think that's a good win. There's a lot of things that we have been doing, in a lot of ways we're pushing back. I think just the final point is, I know you mentioned Students for Palestine. Students for Palestine is not a Guild club, so we're limited in what we can provide to Students for Palestine to operate on campus. We'll always provide support for clubs like Socialist Alternative that are registered clubs, and we'll always defend your right to act on campus, but there is limitations on sort of any outside group coming in on campus as well. So I think just to take that into consideration, I think there's a pretty wide berth to operate within and conduct activism here with the Curtin, and the Guild will always support that.
I guess short.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to know if the Guild can like have a stall at the like clubs. They're having like a illegal stall day at UWA on May 6th, I think, in a few weeks. And I think it'd be good for the Curtin Guild to have a stall there to support that. And I know you mentioned like tensions, like UWA Guild. I think that like that you should have a stall regardless. And I think they want you to have a stall if you are making that illegal so stronger.
You think that the UWA Guild would support us just rocking up and setting up the store?
Well, I think you should reach out to them, or like.
I have reached out to them and they've not.
Well, I mean, I can like raise it, but I do think the Curtin Guild should like try to have a stall and support that event explicitly. I think that is actually a way of like showing universities that a lot of clubs and institutions, etc., are against the crackdowns of free speech that they're imposing on people and students. So, like, I don't know, it's like you want to have a movement. I think go like.
I can't force unity down the throats of the UWA Student Guild. That's up to them to decide. I've offered the hand to them. They can make that decision. If the UWA Guild offers us or invites us to come and participate and help out, I've said we're happy to do it.
Yeah.
Emily.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about, we're not allowed to ask questions throughout the rest of the meeting. 9.3 housing campaign response. So that you want to note the letter from the University CEO Thomas Johnson. I will say it's quite a disgusting response from them. And I do trust that you guys have got something else coming up about it as well. So first I just wanted to ask what the next plan is with that, and also I wanted to ask if you've had any response from the university, because I understand it's went both to Uni Lodge and the university.
Dylan? So in terms of the next step, no, so we haven't got a response from the university, but I do raise it with them. And it's a bit disappointing at the moment in that regard. So I do think we need to we need to ramp it up. I think we should respond to the CEO of Uni Lodge's letter. And I think that perhaps we should invite the CEO of Uni Lodge and the relevant people at Curtin who work in the properties portfolio to possibly a town hall meeting with students living in accommodation. I think that would be a wise next move. And if they decide not to take up that offer, that's fine. We can still go ahead with the meeting and we start to mobilise and organise students around that in terms of pushing back. So I think that's got to be the next step we'll take into consideration.
So is there any final questions?
I just wanted to know, it looks like Gillen's report in the agenda is from last month.
Yes, I believe it was your Guild Council report.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm assuming there'll be a little bit more from last. It'll just be the Guild Council report.
Yeah.
That's the report written, it goes up to the 20th of March, which is a week after the last Reps board and a week before the last Guild Council.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's my Guild Council report from the last meeting because I did not have a chance to write a fresh report. So I think this will be the case running forward because instead of me writing 2 reports, I will write 1 report and we'll just have the same report come to Reps Board and Guild Council because it takes a significant amount of time to write reports and I think it's better spent on other things. We just have 1 thing to go off of, so I apologise for that. Yeah. That's how it happened last year as well. I was trying to go above and beyond and I flew too close to the sun and burnt myself out.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, it's particularly relevant to Curtin college students. So personally, some of them have reached out to me and have personally asked that, as it's a pathway program, like they will be coming to Curtin University in a year. So they feel that they need a representation board or a union. Like we have Curtin Guild at Curtin University. They don't have anything at Curtin College. So is it possible to have a guild at Curtin College?
Nothing's impossible. We can certainly look at it. Curtin College students aren't members of the guild because they're a separate, they're like a sub business, but we can certainly look into it. I think all students deserve representation. So
They reach out to me, but I can't help them because they're not Curtin University students.
Yeah. Certainly happy to take that offline and have a chat. Yeah.
Alright. I'll take that there's no further questions. I'll now move on to item 8, which is reports, starting with 8.1, which is the President's report. So Dylan, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, happy to take it as read and take any questions. I think the biggest movement since last meeting is on the student charter. I sent a draft to all members of this committee, and what we've got back at the moment is a new draft, which has been in. So we had a working group established by the uni. We met in this very room, which is quite hallowed halls in here. We then decided to have a subgroup of that working group that worked on the draft. So we worked on the draft, went back and forth for a month or 2, and then went back to the main working group that then approved it. So now it's going to go through the university's processes, and we'll bring it through Guild Council and Reps Board next month for approval at the academic board at the end of next month as well. The draft version at the moment is being completely removed from student discipline. So student charter breaches will be a thing of the past, which I think is a welcome move. And it also means that in the future, if there's any discipline cases that happen, there will be more around particular areas of conduct, and it will be more clearly outlined to the students, which would give them a greater right of appeal instead of being sort of the student charter. The Guild was successful in pushing for the student charter to be framed around rights and responsibilities. So, I mean, if you wish to indulge me, we've got students with the right to be safe and treated with respect by all members of the Curtin community, receive a world-class education taught by academics with relevant expertise, and receive timely, fair and constructive assessment feedback, have an engaging student experience and access to excellent support and wellbeing services, be freely represented by the Curtin Student Guild and be actively engaged in a culture of staff and student partnership that supported by all members of the Curtin community, and to engage freely in academic discussion, critical thinking, and the generation of new ideas in all aspects of university life. The students have the responsibility to treat everyone with respect and ensure the safety of the members of the Curtin community, actively engage in their learning in all aspects of university life, be honest, demonstrate integrity, dedicate themselves to the pursuit of knowledge, and demonstrate courage by standing up for what's right and doing the right thing, which I think is a pretty decent spot there. And then we've got a further support section, which includes reference to Student Assist and the Guild as the independent student union, which was something that there was a little bit of back and forth about whether we should be referred to as a student union, but we've managed to keep that in there, which I think is really good as well. Full copy will be circulated around to members of Reps Board, and we will have a discussion on that at the next representation board meeting about whether or not we want to endorse it up, and then what our guild reps will do at academic board when it meets at the end of May. But happy to take any questions from members.
Are there any questions from the members? Okay, I'll move on to 8.2, which is the Vice President Education Report, which is mine. I'm just going to note one more thing that's happened this week. I want to give a huge shout out to the FAC reps that were there for the ASPM reviews of the last 2 weeks. Very long process, but we got through it, and hopefully the university will take on our recommendations and considerations that we have provided alongside Student Assist. As for the rest of it, I'm happy to take it as tabled and take any questions. Mitch.
I'd like to get an overview of what this assessment 2030 you talk about in your report is.
I will give a in-depth overview at probably next Reps Board, where Gil and I have received an invite for a meeting on this, for an in-depth overview between the 2 of us and Molly, who is leading that project. Are there any other questions? I'll move on to item 8.3, which is the Vice President's Sustainability and Welfare Report. Rosanna.
It's been a busy month or 6 months, I can't remember anymore. But yeah, everything's been okay. I had a number of things that I was working on. So those are being almost completed, such as the smart bins and the recycling bin. The vinyl being placed on top of it is being confirmed, so at the very last stages before launch. Like Dylan mentioned, we've been working on the student chart as well, and I've been pretty happy with how those meetings have gone as well. I've been regularly meeting with all the equity officers, and they're all doing great as well. Yes, that is basically it. And I'm happy to take the rest of my report as read. And am I answering questions?
If there is any
And
questions.
answer any questions if anyone has any questions.
Okay. I'll move on to item 8.4, which is the Faculty of Business and Law Representatives Report. Nicole.
I'm happy to take mine as read. I can just give an update that we have gone through with the interfaculty scavenger hunt. We are still waiting for results tomorrow on Friday to see how many participants we have. And if we don't have enough, then we do have another meeting set for tomorrow. So there is a small update for that. But otherwise, I'm happy to take any questions. Everything else is to be taken as read.
Are there any questions? I hope that event next Wednesday goes well. And now move on
Thank
to the report for the Faculty of Science and Engineering representative, Cooper.
Yeah, I'm happy to take mine as read. Is there anything I wanted to discuss? The only thing maybe is there was a major mishap, if we can call it that, regarding the Bachelor of Electrical and Computing major. It was in 2022. It was set out to allow students to enroll, and after 3 years, Engineers in Australia decided to let Curtin know that they would not be receiving accreditation if they were to pursue this. And they had students who were ready to graduate this year, which I think is a major oversight on Curtin's part. I feel like there should have been more, more proactive, action on their part to ensure that this course would be accredited. Thankfully, the faculty staff have been doing a wonderful job in ensuring the transition to their new degree is not going to cause any issues in terms of length or added study load or other costs. But I think it's something that the university will need to look into in terms of adding new courses that require accreditation and ensuring that they will be accredited before students put more than 3 or 4 years into it. Apart from that, yeah, happy to take it as read and answer any questions.
So there's no questions. I'll move on to the health sciences report, which was not submitted and Ravat was absent. And now I'll move on to the faculty of humanities report. Tom.
I think mine is mostly noted. However, what I will talk about is today's course committee meeting. And in regards to, yeah, well, just in regards to the ASPM, the Faculty of Humanities is broadly in support of our position. They submitted a very similar, feedback, and we've got their support. So
Awesome. Are there any questions for Tom? Okay. I'll move on to the student assist report, which is submitted, but Joanne is not present. Are there any comments on this report? Okay. I'll move on to the International Postgraduate Student Committee President, Hazaifa, which was not submitted, but I believe you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, I submitted it on 3rd of April, which was specific deadline, but I'll just give a brief overview of about the recent events. So we have an event tomorrow, which is the International Student Migration Awareness Program. It's happening in Elizabeth Jolley Theatre. So we already have about 450 students registered for the program, and I believe most of the students are going to come, and it's going to be a huge success. And we have already organized a lot of giveaways and freebies to give out to all students who are attending the event. And apart from that, I've attended the Study Perth International Students Welcome Day, where I personally advertised and promoted Curtin Guild activities and what we do at Curtin and all the good things happening here. And then also we have had a meet and greet Cafe Connect session with international students, explaining them, introducing guild services, student assist and IC activities. Also, we had IC and PSC Sundowner. It was a collaborated event with PSC and IC, and we received a good turnout. Also, huge highlight for this event was we were able to have pizzas at sundown, especially for Muslim students who are fasting during the month of Ramadan. So probably was the first time we were able to do something like this. And also a lot of catch-up meetings with digital engagement team, where we planned various contents for the upcoming months. For they have a program called they're doing reels about, okay, I'm at Curtin now. What that's a video reel they're making every month. They're posting contents. So yeah.
Are there any questions for Hazaifa? I'll move on to the acting postgraduate student president's report.
I'll take it mostly as read, and I'll just add a couple of things. So on Monday, had my first postgraduate student committee meeting, now that all of the positions have been filled. And in terms of the policies and procedures, with me and Andrew from Student Assist have now given feedback, and I had several meetings with GRS on 6 different policies and procedures, and got some major changes made in terms of timeframes for show cause and appeals and things like that. It's been a lot of work. the collection of HDR policies is basically the same as what ASPM is for coursework students. So it's been a lot of policy.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mitch. I'll move on to the queer officers report, Morgan.
I'm happy to take my report as read. I would just like to thank everyone who came to level 1 and 2 ally training. Your allyship is greatly appreciated. I am in the process of getting the email sticker so you can all show what true allies you are to the students you email. And the staff, they need to know too. For those who are part of the exec team, look forward to an email from me about level 3. You've not escaped yet. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, I'll take this, there's no questions. I'll move on to the women's officers report, Bridget.
I'm happy to take it as read and happy to answer any questions.
Take that as no questions and move on to the accessibility officers report, Lorian.
Firstly, happy to take it as read. I just wanted to note that I believe the app plan report thing, the investigation, whatever that thing is, I believe the report has been finalized now. So probably next reps board that will be coming up. And then also, I don't know that I've put it in my report, but early this week, Morgan and I had the Diversity Inclusion Belonging Committee, and it's they are currently reviewing the structure and to make that more functional, hopefully. So that's also something that will be coming eventually.
Okay. Are there any questions for Lorian?
Yeah, do we have a copy of that?
Not yet. I just got mentioned at the DMC meeting to have in there.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Any other questions? I'll move on to the higher education developments report, which has been submitted. Are there any comments for this report? Okay, I'm now going to read the motion that the representation board notes these reports. Is there any comment, any final comments? Okay, I could have someone to move this.
I'll move it.
Someone to second. Lorian, so moved by Rabab and seconded by, sorry, Razan, sorry. I'm looking down here, sorry. Moved by Razan and seconded by Lorian. All those in favour? All those against? That is passed. And I'll move on to item 9, which is items for discussion and resolution. Starting off with 9.1, which is opposing Trump's authoritarian attacks on universities and free speech. This is moved by Dylan. Do you want to quickly speak to it before I read the motion? No. And seconded by Razan. Would you like to?
I think it's self-explanatory, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I'll now read the motion that the representation board condemns Trump's attacks on Australian universities and the criminalisation of seeking justice, including justice for Palestine, people with disabilities, LGBTQIA+, and CALD people, and justice for climate. 2, support the efforts for justice and freedom against harmful agendas inspired or as a result of Trump's presidency, especially for those that are marginalized and affected, including First Nations, CALD people with disabilities in the LGBTQIA+ community. Are there any comments for members? No.
People from, we submitted the motion. So I think.
Who was the motion submitter?
Yeah.
Amita, would you like to speak to them? Yeah, I'll give you time to speak to it.
I think it's important to talk about this and put the guild to move a motion that opposes Trump's attacks because it's just been really intense attacks on free speech and attacks on activism, and like nearly a dozen students have now been detained by ICE agents in the US for participation in activism, standing for their political opinions standing for Palestine. And, you know, some of these students weren't even organized at these protests, like they just attended one, two protests. And like most of these students still being detained in detention centers and this is in addition to like 300 or even more students visas being revoked as well. It's also like Trump has also cut billions of dollars in federal funding to universities across the US. Like just in Columbia University, it has cut like 400 million in funding due to its like, you know, like it's the Palestine sort of protests and stuff on the university. So I think like university should be a place for free speech for students to be able to show their kind of support for things like you know their political opinions to be able to discover and like you know there should be that academic freedom. And Trump's attack just isn't just in America as well. We've seen it in Australia as well with the sort of like all the fundings that's been cut. And I think this is really, really important for the Guild to sort of stand, you know, against Trump's attacks. And I think like the Australian government needed to like, you know, have a more of like her ground on this as well. It is really concerning what we are seeing in Australia, like with UWA, and like all like restrictions students are facing, even to leaflet, like to be able to, you know, just give a lecture announcement and stuff.
No,
Why not? What's the point of having like
there's question time.
question time?
Yes.
Motions discussing important political issues like Trump is on an authoritarian rampage in America against.
I agree that it is, but there was question time for this exact reason to speak on this for the gallery.
You said it.
I did say I'll only be taking questions during question
No,
time.
you said you won't take questions in response to the reports. You
No,
say-
I did not.
Yes, you did. You didn't say the motion.
I just
Just make it clear.
I didn't specify anything.
No, you said reports for sure, whatever.
Why are you reducing the amount of time that we get to speak? When this sort of
I'm not reducing any time. I'm following.
The idea was that you know, you got rid of these positions, ordinary representation board members, because we would have more rights to speak from you know, being unelected members of the representation board. So are you now reducing the amount of time we have to speak, and reducing the amount of accountability and democracy within this board after you promised that you wouldn't do that last year? So what's happening?
And public question time is limited to only 15 minutes. There's a limited amount of time that.
Yes, it's limited to 15 minutes to keep these meetings.
No way to
precise.
Exactly, yeah, to keep reps to account either.
So are you reducing the accountability of the guild?
Absolutely not.
Well, then how can we not?
I'm following the procedures that are laid out in front of me.
Can I ask
Rapid
a question?
procedures change.
Can I just ask a question about the action points of this motion? Like what's going to be actioned? Because I do.
Moving forward, I'm going to be following this, but yes, for this one, sure.
Okay, well, I do think the Guild should add a statement, like as per the motion, condemning Trump's authoritarian attacks on students in America. Like Mahmoud Khalil, like a leading student activist of Columbia University, was detained and has been locked up since. He was walking home with his wife, and ICE agents came out of nowhere and put him in a police car with no explanation. And I do think like student unions around the world should take an active stance.
I do believe in the motion, it is speaking to condemning those motion, condemning that.
Also, will the Guild add a statement, like.
I cannot comment. I am
There
just,
was an action point in the motion submitted, so can.
Chair.
Thank you.
I move a motion that the speaker no longer be heard.
okay. Would someone like to second this motion? Okay. All those in favour? All those against? That motion is carried. Okay, I'll now move on to, I will read the motion one more time and then move the motion. The representation reads that the representation board condemns the Trump's attacks on Australian universities and the criminalisation seeking justice, including justice for Palestine, people with disabilities, LGBTQIA+, and cool people, as well as justice for climate, and also supports the efforts for justice and freedom freedom of speech against harmful agendas inspired or by a result of Trump's presidency, especially with marginalized and affected groups, such as First Nations, called people, people with disabilities, and LGBTQI plus people or community. That is moved by Dylan, seconded by Razan. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. I'll now move on to item 9.2, as submitted by Dylan. Would you like to speak to it, which is Dutton's plans to interfere with our education?
Yes, I can. It's attached here somewhere at the bottom here. What we saw at the, gosh, sorry, it's a little bit messy, the motion here. What we saw was a decision by Dutton to basically say that he will use TEXA to impose restrictions on what universities can teach. So the NTEU has put out a statement on this outlining this attack and warning against the unprecedented level of ministerial intervention into learning and into course content. A Dutton government would task TEXA, which is the body responsible for registration and compliance for universities, to audit each degree's compliance with the government's political agenda, which is deeply concerning and something that we as a strong student union should be standing up for. So yeah, that's why I've decided to move this motion.
Razan, would you like to speak to this, the seconder?
I would. I think it's important that we do speak up and address this. There are, if you look at how universities are moving, there are 6 universities that have given into, I know it was still moving, looking at how we are moving, there are 6 universities that have changed course structures and things like that because of certain communication. So it is important that we do maintain our independence. We know what Peter Dutton is capable of if he is elected, which he won't be. But again, the motion pretty much speaks for it.
Okay. Are there any comments from the committee? Okay, I'll now move on to reading the motion that that the representation board will condemn Peter Dutton's plans to introduce ministerial intervention into university course content through TEXA, and affirms that universities must remain spaces of independent thought, academic freedom, and truth-seeking, free from political censorship. This is moved by Dylan, seconded by Razan. All those in favour? All those against? That is moved. Okay, now moving to item 9.3, the housing campaign response. Dylan, would you like to speak towards this first?
Yeah, look, so we've got over 1,000 signatures on this petition, and we sent a letter off which served as formal delivery of the petition to Unilodge. We got a response back from Thomas Johnson, who's the CEO of Unilodge. It's attached to the agenda pack. They said, you know, appreciate your feedback, which is very nice of them. They said that student accommodation buildings in question were designed and built at a time when air conditioning was not a standard feature. Due to the age and design of these buildings, installing permanent or mobile air conditioning would present significant technical and logistical challenges, including substantial upgrades to electrical systems, ventilation and infrastructure. Given the complexity and associated costs, it's not feasible to move forward with such an installation without major renovations or reconstruction of these buildings. Frankly, I don't think that this is particularly a valid concern. Unilodge and the university receive millions of dollars a year in rent and other fees. So I do think that the cost being a barrier to installing air conditioning is not appropriate. They say, we recognise that the living conditions in the older buildings can differ from those in newer facilities, and we want to acknowledge the concern that this raises. However, it's important to note that the rent for older student accommodation is considerably lower than that of newer buildings. It's not really that cheap. reality, it's kind of just outlining that they're price gouging even more for students that live in the newer student accommodation. Put together some of the numbers, once you figure out that you've got the units where you're bringing in thousands of dollars in rent and fees per unit, per, room in that unit, you've got a 6-8 bedroom unit, you're racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees for just a house, essentially, rent and fees, which is a huge amount of rent, and on the open market would not be considered appropriate. It's not considered, we don't consider it appropriate here, so it's something to keep pushing back on, and that's what this motion is, just an opportunity for us to discuss this here, but also to note it and to reiterate our commitment to fight back.
Bridget?
Dylan really nailed it. I have nothing more to add.
Okay. The motion reads that the representation board, sorry, that's my apologies.
I'd just like to point out that particularly for the older buildings, it's not like they're paying a mortgage like you would on a house on the open market. So they don't have any costs other than utilities and maintenance. So the fact that they're charging, well, in some cases, more than the median price for a room in surrounding suburbs, where they don't have costs such as paying back a mortgage, they only have utilities and maintenance to do. And then they're charging, activities fees and all this other stuff, and they don't upkeep, things like the basketball court, there's a bike project, Carriage Village that can be very easily broken into and it's not secure and fixed. There's all sorts of stuff that they won't do other than aircon as well. So, yeah.
Are there any other members that'd like to speak towards this? Okay. Motion reads that the representation board notes with disappointment that the letter from the Unilodge CEO, Thomas Johnson, responding to the over 1,000 signatures from the turn down the heat petition, and affirms that any action short of allowing students to keep themselves cool in summer is an abdication of Unilodge and Curtin's responsibility to provide safe housing arrangements for all students living on campus. This is moved by Dylan, seconded by Bridget. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. I'll move on to item 9.4, which is the endorsement of May Day 2025. Dylan, would you like to speak towards this?
Happy to speak broadly. May Day is an important moment for us to come together and remember the importance of fighting for what's right, the importance of the Labor movement in achieving so much of what we really take for granted here. I don't want to speak for too much because I'm sure Tom's got a lot to add as a seconder of this motion and a proud supporter of trade unions in this country and around the world.
Tom?
Yeah, I'll speak to May Day. Absolutely, many a conservative government have tried to repress May Day in Australia and abroad. And they've always tried to deride it as an extremist, communist sort of, celebration. And I think it's important that we go to May Day and continue to celebrate May Day as, as student unionists, as trade unionists, and, as we always have, and, stand in solidarity with our fellow progressives.
Well spoken. Does anyone else like to comment or ask any questions? Okay. I'll now move that the representation board support the celebration of May Day. That's moved by Dylan, seconded by Tom. All those in favour? All those against? Motion carried. I'll now move on to general business. Is there any general business from members? Okay. I'll now move on to the meeting evaluation. Bridget.
It was a pretty solid meeting apart from the 25-minute lateness. Look, apart from that, it's pretty.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. I'll move on to 12, which is the next meeting. The next ordinary meeting of representation board will be held on the 15th of May in the University Council chambers. Thank you all, and I will close this meeting at 6:42 p.m.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
See you, Nicole.
I was not ready for